Hi, everybody. Afternoon, morning, whatever it is, wherever you are. It's Jim Norris from Backstage Insider, and we're fortunate today to have Suzie McNeil with us from the lovely city of Burlington, Ontario. We were just talking about that great performing arts center there. A lot of musicians actually in that area between Hamilton, Burlington, Oakville. So good place to be after everywhere you've lived. So the first thing I want to just talk about is your early musical roots, and I understand that your family was quite, musical.
Yes, yep, thanks for having me, by the way.
No problem.
My whole family is, going all the way to definitely my grandfather. He would play banjo in the war. In World War II, he'd, find, you know, pianos, different places and play them for the soldiers and stuff. He played every song on the he just said he couldn't read music, so he'd make it up and he'd play every song on the black keys for some reason. Yeah, so then he passed that love of music on to my mother, and she would always sing with my sister and I and kind of taught me everything I know about harmony. She didn't even mean to, she just wanted someone to sing with, and she had 2 daughters right there who could sing, so she definitely was an influence as to why I'm doing this today.
Well, that's great. So how old were you when you started, playing an instrument, singing?
Well, I took piano lessons and stuff like that, but I didn't, to be honest, love it. I really loved singing. My parents were active in the church, and my mom made me go in the church choir and stuff. So I learned it a lot. I learned a lot of stuff from that.
Wow. So so you got started pretty early then.
Yeah, and that age-old thing where a lot of artists like Whitney Houston and stuff, sang in the church is it's true. You learn a lot because 'cause you're constantly doing it, and it's like lessons without taking lessons.
Right. And what denomination was that church that you belonged to?
Presbyterian, so
Oh
my mom ended up marrying the minister, so we really were involved in the church.
my god, that's incredible. So
Yeah.
how old were you when you first performed as a singer, for the public, aside from your
Gosh,
church
well, I mean,
performances?
I was my school was like a private school, it was quite musical as well. I remember auditioning for the musical when I was in 5th grade, and um, I got it, but we were so young that it was Annie, so they decided to split the role of Annie because it was a big part and we were young. And I don't know if anyone out there knows Alex Pangman. She's another singer in Ontario, and she does, like, swing music. She
Wow,
was the other Annie, so the 2 of us both grew up and we do music for a living, so that's pretty cool.
that's amazing. And then how did that progress into becoming your profession?
It was all I ever really wanted to do. I had some odd jobs. I worked for my dad a bunch. After I went to Sheridan College for music theater and then left after half a year. I went to Humber College for jazz
Oh,
singing,
wow,
and I left after a year. I just wanted to do it. I didn't really want to learn how to do it. I thought if youth is on my side. I always kind of knew that. So I was like, if I'm going to do it, I need to do it now. And then I can always sort of go back on something else if it doesn't work out. Um, but I remember I was like filing my dad's taxes. He was paying me to do it. And I was like, this sucks. So I made a promise to myself that I would do music professionally, and I had said to myself, I don't care what style of music it is or what I'm doing specifically. I just want to be singing. And from pretty much like that day forward, I have been.
great. And who were your early influences as a singer?
I mean, I always loved, which, I've been talking about more recently, soul music. I've always loved like vintage sort of, Etta James and Aretha Franklin. And then obviously that parlays into Janis Joplin and just like really strong. female singers, even like Nina Simone. Like I learned a lot about jazz when I went there for the year. So I would say that's sort of my first love. I kind of love all music. I'll put on instrumental jazz at home because I don't have to think about singing. There's always that, right? Like, um, but I would say my first, I loved music theater. We grew up with that too. So it's like my answer is kind of all of it, to be honest.
Excellent. So when was your first album released?
Well, I've been releasing records since like 2000, early 2000s, although no one really heard them. I was always trying to make it as a singer, like from like when I said. So I would go into these different studios and record. I started a couple different bands. One was rock, one was more soul. I remember performing at Healy's when Jeff Healy had a bar in Toronto, like, and that was kind of my community for a while, is all the people that hung out there, and like the Phantoms, if you remember them, and like Big Sugar, and so that was my era a bit. Then I joined like a sort of alt band, and that wasn't my favorite. It was a really great band, but it wasn't my favorite. And then I got Rockstar in Excess. So, being on a reality show really opened up a lot of doors for me. I would say it changed my life. So that's sort of where my career career trajectory changed.
Excellent. That's great. So, what about touring? When did you actually start playing live? Was that around the same time or, going on real tours?
No, not real tours. When I first started, I played like I kind of am a story of at the time building something from nothing. So the internet was still dial up. You could get a little info from it, but it wasn't a real big help. I would send demo tapes, like cassette tapes, to bars. I would send a resume and an 8 by 10. And where I started is I just wanted to start playing bars because that's sort of all I knew, right? Like, where does a kid from Mississauga start playing music? So at the time, there were still agents that would book like bars that would hire bands on weekends, and we would go everywhere from Kingston to, Windsor, and we'd get paid through the agent. Then, that was a it was kind of a rough life, but I was in my 20s and it didn't matter, meaning late nights and smoky bars at the time. And then I remember getting hired by a ABBA tribute band that was going on at the time. And that just seemed like such like a, easy cushy job because we were playing theaters, so there was no smoke, there were no late nights. We'd fly in, so I'd fly across Canada with this band for like 3 years. Got to and the US, got to see a lot of places. The tribute bands are still rocking because ABBA never wanted to get back together. So if you wanna hear their music live, it's tribute all the way.
That's true. So, you've got a new album coming out and there's a release party and all kinds of things going on this month. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So as I've been talking about this record, like I said, I've kind of dabbled in different kinds of music in my career, but the one that I always loved the most was soul. So, I had pop, songs on the radio, and I sort of played that game, I like to say, because it kind of is a game. And then after I had my son, I was like, I'm obviously still going to keep doing this in my life, but I would like to sort of go back to what I love, and also a style of music that's like classic and timeless. So I did this big like launch in 2018, to anyone who cared, where I was like, I'm changing my direction. We did a 10-piece band with horns and backup singers. We rearranged a lot of my, radio hits, and now we do them in more of this soul feel. And, my dad, was always bothering me to release a record that was of all Canadian songs. He wanted me to call it Canada Rocks, I remember. And during COVID, we had a gig for on Canada Day in Brantford, and I actually asked my husband, who's a guitar player, I was like, "We need a Canadian song that we can, like, turn into this soul feel," and he suggested Bob Cajun by the Tragically Hip. So we put a spin on it, like, kinda made it kind of like a Valerie groove by Amy Winehouse, and it sounded awesome, and so good that I wanted to record it, so we did, and I released it as a single, and then meanwhile, my dad got sick and sadly passed away, so it inspired me to finish this record, and I thought I'm gonna do an album of all Canadian songs done in a soul feel to match that Bob Cajun style, and I'm gonna dedicate it to my dad, so here we are.
Excellent. So do you have any, live performances planned over the summer?
Yes, yep, we have a few, the album release is the big one for me, it's at the West Hill Theater in Hamilton, and that's on June 26th, and then we have a Canada Day show, of course, in Port Credit, their festival there in Mississauga, and then we have a few other dates. I think we're playing Festival of Friends this year. We also have dates that are gonna go into the fall because I wanna take the show into, a few theaters here and there. We have one that's gonna be in Kitchener and, one out east. It'll kind of be a show that we'll just keep doing. It'll probably have more relevance as, Canada Day comes around, but, yeah, we have a theme that we're always available to do, and I wanna bring, like, a class to it, right? Like, I was researching other Canadian songs that have been remixed in a soul style, and one is "The Weight" by Aretha Franklin, like, "The Weight" by the
Right.
band, and, I just wanna keep going with that, it's, like, really fun to me, so
Excellent. And where did you record the new album?
Nashville, actually. I'm up in Ca here in Canada and Nashville. So I had my band do it, like the band that I play with all the time. Um, it was a great experience. Sometimes, now you can do it remotely. We kinda got together in the studio a bit. We, rehearse these vibes, in the rehearsal studio as well, and then I would put down like a guide track and send it to everybody, and then I'd take all that down to Nashville, and then it was recorded, the gut of it and my vocals and mixed and stuff down there.
Excellent. So, with your busy life currently and in the past, how do you balance all of that with your family?
It's hard. Thank you for asking. No. Yeah, it's not always this busy. So that's a good thing too. It's like when I'm here, and when I'm not, I'm really not. Like I said, my husband, he's a working musician, so we kind of like trade off. And we're both really supportive of each other. Like right now he's on tour with Tim Hicks. We both support each other because we know exactly how it feels. So there's like, that we're so supportive. So that helps a lot, right? Like we know exactly what each other are doing. Like, oh, it's 2 o'clock. They're in sound check. And how many sound checks have I done in my life? And then I have on my email like I won't get back to you on weekends. I would say weekends are the craziest, right? Because there's more shows on weekends, and then my son is home, and I wanna, give him the best life. So, don't try and get a hold of me on weekends.
And if you could give advice to somebody starting out, some young person that's just starting their career, what would that number one piece of advice be?
I would say first and foremost, I would say you have to, do it at least say you're gonna do it, yourself. Like, you have to be ready to, do everything, to be honest, yourself. Now, if someone comes in as in a label or a manager and they wanna help you and they believe in you, great. But It's kind of that thing without being, like, grumpy or, jaded about it. If you want something done right, you gotta do it yourself, and you are your best and your biggest believer and supporter. I would say that was the biggest lesson that I learned. Like, I had some of the top businesses and people in the industry, like in LA, saying they were going to do this and that and the other thing for me. And then they were like, oh, yeah, we don't want to do that anymore. And if you dig into the music industry, that's very common. That's when I learned, like, oh, okay. I thought you would do what you said, but okay. And then that's when I just started I made a promise to myself, I'm just gonna do it all, and whoever wants to, like, jump on the train can with me, and I've been doing that ever since. You also I would have to say most artists or people who want to be singers or musicians, you kind of more now than ever need to be able to do it all, unfortunately. Like, and you need a pretty, like, good business brain because although social media is amazing and it's free advertising, really, it's a lot of work and you don't really have that person doing it all for you. You have to do that. If you don't have a manager, you have to do contracts, you have to write the songs, you have to record the songs, you have to do your branding, your videos and your photo shoots. Like, it's endless, but if you're determined, you'll make it in some capacity, and I always say that because everyone that I knew when I was younger who was in the music business, like, I grew up with people, coming up as well, and everyone who stuck at it made it in some capacity, whether it be, like, I remember Metric went to the Etobicoke School of the Arts, so that band, and they are that, right? And then you know my career, like, anyone who stuck at it made it. So it's like you give the universe no choice other than to be successful.
For sure. Well, that's definitely great advice, and, I wish you all the best in your career and everything you've got going on over the summer, and, yeah, with this'll all be out to the public shortly. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you. My husband has that shirt, by the way.
Good.
It's a
Good
good one.
good
Did you
stuff.
get it from the Alma Combo?
I actually got it from Greg Godovitz at Canadian Music Week probably 15 years ago.
Yeah, maybe he did too then. That's
Yeah.
great. I
Take
love
care.
it. Okay, thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.